All right, Esther chapter 3. Esther chapter 3, and we covered 4 verses last week, so we'll pick up on verse 5. Esther 3, verse 5.
Does that mean that we're doing Job after Esther?
I've already done Job, but we'll see. Esther 3, verse 5. Yeah, Job would take, if I really did verse by verse through Job, we'd be here for a while.
There's some language in there that Elihu uses that is just out of this world. It's a language it's something that God understands,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not something that you can look at and just, oh, that's what that is. Oh, no. Because I was looking at that the other. I'll be quiet.
Esther 3, verse 5. And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then was Haman full of wrath. And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had shown him the people of Mordecai. Wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai. In the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, that is, the lot, before Haman from day to day and from month to month, to the 12th month, that is the month Adar. Okay, so we've gotten a lot of facts here. First thing, just right off the bat, you see is verse 7. The first month is what? Nisan.
That's not the first month.
That good catch. What is it? No. What's Abib? Biblically, the first month is Abib. That's the month in Exodus God declares as the first month. Well, the pagans have another name for it. It's Nisan, or however, Nisan.
It's an import, whatever.
Yeah, right. It's a high mileage vehicle. Okay, so here Haman's getting all the accolades. People are bowing to him, and he's getting worship, and you got to be careful with that thing because it does what it just did to him. It goes to your head. So you believe about half of the compliments that come in and about a half of the critiques that come in, and then you're balanced. He gets mad because one person is not bowing to him. That's pretty good odds. If 99% of the people are saying you're doing a good job, we love you, don't get mad over one that doesn't say it. You learn this when you have people that give you reviews. If you don't have some negative reviews in there, I worry that it's not real. Because every now and then you're going to find a nutcase out there, or you yourself are going to be worthless every now and then. That's just reality. And here he's got one person who says, I don't think you're that great. And he's mad about it. In verse 6, and he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone. That is, by himself. Not Haman doing it by himself, but only on Mordecai. Okay, this is rage, is what this is. He says, okay, one man doesn't like me. Okay, I've got to destroy his whole race. Wow, that's taking it to an extreme. That's satanic, is what that is. And you find it all through history. Nations that turn against the Jews for no reason, or for stupid reasons, like here. So this is our passage is going to establish Haman as a type of the Antichrist. The Antichrist does that. He goes after the Jews. In Revelation chapter 12 is where you find the devil as Antichrist going after the Jews. Now that we all through history get pictures of that event. Not only biblically, but in our modern history. Hitler's the great example that we know about. And I will show you something. Hitler, in 1920, I believe it is. Yes, in 1920, before the Nazi Party, his socialist ID card is Adolf Hitler, and his identification number is 555.
Triple death.
Right. Well, we know who the next one is that's going to show up. 666. So that tells you something. All through history, there have probably been men without man's intent have identified themselves as the countdown. Now that's Hitler. You can find that in a book, John Tolan. He shows his ID card, and then you can also find it. I found it on another website online, historyucsb.education.edu. If you need that link, just let me know and I'll get that to you. But that's that's commonly known, so it's not something that's just obscure. That's not him putting it together. That's somebody way outside of things, orchestrating things, lining things up the way he intends. Of course, the Antichrist is going to show up, and we know his number, 666. And that's not a figurative language. That's not anything. That's its actual number. And God is a God of mathematics.
That's right.
He's so into this thing that the fourth book of your Bible is called Numbers. So Numbers is something ordained by God. And he can use them and manipulate them and do anything he wants with them, but numbers are ordained of God. Numbers are a different language in and of themselves. If you really get into numbers, you'll sit down and you'll, before long, lose track of reality, because you're so into learning this or figuring out how this combination is going to work that you lose track of what's around you. That's a different thing. Now, music does the same thing. There's a lot of things that do that. Numbers is one of those things that does it. General Montgomery, he was a weirdo, but what he would do on long trips, like on a long airplane trip, in order to relax, was he would do calculus. What?
Yeah.
That was relaxing to him. Why? Because it takes you out of this world and its problems and demands all of your attention. So you're moved on. Well, God's the controller of numbers. There's a bunch of numbers in history. We know that there's going to be a number 777. You know who that is? Well, if 666 is the devil, then who's 777? Jesus Christ. And 777 comes after 666, and 777 is much better than 666. And that's the way it's going to go. Okay, the new heavens and the new earth show up, the Godhead itself. After the millennium, he delivers everything to God, and then it goes into the Godhead. The Godhead itself will be 888. The next thing, a new beginning, something new. 7 will be the 7,000th year of the earth. 777 will be in charge on the 7,000th year, the day of rest. 7, complete your week. At the end of that, you get day 8, which is a new beginning. That'll be the Godhead, eternity. 999, what would that be? Well, this is a tricky one. This is a trick question. Well, this is a tricky one. This is a tricky one because the God of this Bible tells you he's going to tell things before they come to pass. He's the God of the future. So if you have the Bible, you're ahead of time. The Bible is 999, fruitful. You can't bear fruit without the Word.
Amen.
It's the seed that gives fruit. King James, if you just take the letters in that, it's 9 letters. 1611, you add the numbers up, it's 9. It's all 9. It's fruitful. He says in Psalms 119:89, forever, that word is settled in heaven. Okay, it's settled there. It's already there. What we've got here is a preview. We've got it early. As a Christian, we've got something that's way beyond time and history. This thing has been relevant for all of time.
Amen.
There's no other book like that.
That's right.
This is supernatural. This is 999. He says the heavens and earth will pass away, but my word won't. Okay, so it's going to last longer than 777 and longer than 888. It's going to be forever. If heaven and earth can pass away, something stays, and it's what we've already got right here. We've been given something special. Peter said the grass withers, the flower thereof fades away, but the word of the Lord endureth forever. That's forever. Okay, so the scriptures in Luke chapter 8, verse 11. Luke 8, verse 11. If 9 is fruitful, then here's the fruit. You can't get fruit without a seed. Luke 8, verse 11. Now the parable is this. The seed is the word of God. Okay? No seed, no fruit, that's for sure. Some of the seeds we plant don't bear any fruit, that's for sure. But this one will. He says in Matthew 13, verse 23, basically the same thing, a little different though. But he that receiveth the seed in good ground is he that heareth the word. So he's saying there the word is the seed. That's God's seed, and it brings forth fruit. All right, Esther chapter 3, verse 7. Esther 3, verse 7. In the first month, that is the month Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast pur, P-U-R. That's not a cat, but I would cast those out too. No, that is the lot before Haman from day to day and from month to month to the 12th month. That is the month Adar. Okay, so they're doing something here. They're casting pur. That is the lot. They're casting like dice. This is a game of chance. They're doing this on purpose, almost like a Ouija board, to find out when they should do something. Yeah, it's pagan. That's just what it is. It's a random chance method to choose the day that they're going to do something. In this case, it's the day he's going to go after the Jews. He's going to kill off the Jews.
So would the lottery be like casting pur?
Yeah, anything that's a game of chance. For instance, yeah, even just anything like that. It's benign in some instances. However, here you know that it's wrong because it's asking for supernatural guidance. If you're basing your life on something supernatural and you're just leaving it up to supposed chance, somebody's going to control it. God, or he'll have the devil control it for you. Now, the old-timers were really hard on this. Old-timers said you should not play any game of chance. Uno's out. It's a game of chance. You don't know what card you're going to draw. They said the only thing you should do are games of skill. Something you can actually do on your own, or say, I was deficient, I need to work on that area. Chess is a thinking game. Yeah, so that's, now I don't know that I would go that far with it, but they do. Anyway, you decide how far you take it.
The supernatural element is what I would be concerned about.
Yeah, that anything I say that is, you're asking for guidance in life, that's where you know the line's got to be drawn. But as far as playing a game and all that, you decide. I'm not going to tell you one way or the other. Okay, so they throw this dice, or they cast this pur, P-U-R, and find out when they're going to do it. Well, they find out the day's going to be on the 13th day. 13th day, then they find out the month. The month's going to be the 12th month, the month Adar. Esther 3, verse 7. The first month, that is Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast the bird, so forth, so on. Now, the Jewish calendar, the first month has two names, and you'll find them calling it the pagan name in the Bible. And I don't know what the balance on that is. I would say you want to go by what God names the thing. But God in his own word will use the heathen naming. And you find the same thing with people. He'll use their heathen name over and over. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Everybody knows that. But they don't know the real names. But he'll use the heathen's naming system. So there's something there. I don't know what. In Exodus 13, verse 4. And I'm just going to give you the references. You don't have to turn there. Exodus 13:4 and Exodus 12:2. God calls the month Abib. Now, that was God's blessing. Now, it could be as simple as they left God's blessing. He doesn't let them have that name. So you got to learn a new name for this month. I mean, it could be that simple. I don't know. You study it, see what you come up with. As far as the Jews are concerned, they had a lunar calendar. That is, they followed the moon. The moon would tell them what month it was, and because of that, their month or their year would be off by 11 days. You add up, they have a 30-day month because they're following the moon. So if you have 12 months in a 30-day month, you end up short. And over a cycle of years, you're way off. You think you're having winter, and it turns out to be in the middle of the summer. So because of that, they had a system where the Jews would add a 13th month. They would add a second 12th month. And that'd be 5 times during a 19-year cycle. And that way it would keep the Passover where the Passover is supposed to be.
So instead of like leap year, they have a
Leap month, correct. Correct.
You know how we have February 29th once in a while. Yeah.
During their exile, during the time that they were away from Israel, they began to learn the custom and the ways of the heathen. And they had to. They were living with them. And so they get a bunch of this stuff that's hanging over from their pagan roots that they draw in, and you'll see that haunts them the rest of their life. But one of them is this thing right here. All right, so in Proverbs chapter 16, verse 33, they did this game of chance. They threw the dice or whatever they're doing, picking a stone or drawing a short straw. All that stuff is games of chance. They did this to find out what day should we go genocide the Jews. Well, they find it's going to be the 13th day. They did it thinking they were doing it not to the God of the Jews. They weren't asking the God of the Jews, when do we go slaughter your people? But look who answered them. Proverbs 16:33. The lot is cast into the lap, but the whole disposing thereof is of the Lord. God was controlling it. Now, that's a name that doesn't show up in this book. Esther doesn't mention God. However, God's still there working it. And you can't read the book without seeing him moving and guiding and doing things that men wouldn't just naturally do on their own. Here, the lot was set up by God. If you're a Christian, nothing really happens by chance. A Christian, he says all things will work together for our good. Okay, so it doesn't happen by chance. It's for our good. That's the way we look at things. Before the Holy Spirit's given in Acts 2, people used this system, the lot. You'll find in the Old Testament they used the Urim and the Thummim, that thing, the breastplate. They would get an answer from God through these means because they didn't have a full canon. They didn't have the whole counsel of God. So they needed an answer sometimes that wasn't written. We don't need to do that. We've got everything he wants to say to mankind is written right here, nothing else to be said. So we don't have to seek any other source. And there was a difference. There was a big difference in the way they did it and what modern mystics do. Every time in the Bible they sought God and had to do it through another means, the Urim and the Thummim, the casting of the lot, it was all done with God as the one who should give the outcome. They knew the God who was going to control things, and they were praying that God would give the answer. Now, we don't have to do that anymore, and you open yourself up for a problem if you do that, because a God, little g, will give you an answer, and that's not good. Let's see. There's a lot there I don't want to get into.
I have a question.
Yes.
Where does it say it was the 13th day?
The 13th day is that verse 7? Oh, I've not gotten to it. Verse 12. The king's scribes called on the 13th day, the first month, wherein is written according to all that Haman had commanded to the king's lieutenants, governors, so forth, so on. Yeah, I didn't give you that verse, but the 13th day pops up there. Okay, let me skip. Yeah, it's evidence of rebellion. Okay, Esther 3, verse 8. And Haman said to King Ahasuerus, there is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom. Thy kingdom. He wants to be this big muckety muck, and it's me and the king, and except for when he's pouty. You can just hear him throwing a temper tantrum here. Thy kingdom. And their laws are diverse from all people. Wait a minute. He's got kingdoms that stretch all the known regions of the world. His people are all diverse from one from another. You can count on it that the Persians were very different than the Indians in India. Okay? Well, what's he basing this, the Jews are so much different than the rest of your people? I think the Indians are too. Every group was diverse in and of itself. But here he's singling out the Jew. Neither keep the king's laws. Therefore, it is not for the king's profit to suffer them. Okay, now he's made it good for the king. You're going to lose money with these guys. Whoa. You start talking about my pocketbook, then I pay attention. And that's what he's doing here. He's saying, hey, you're going to go bankrupt. You got to get rid of these people. They're bad news. And he appeals to him as a king. They don't follow your rules. You make rules and they don't obey them. They do whatever they want. Okay, well, that's something that'll perk a king's ears up. I mean, a king has got to run a tight ship. He's the one that makes the rules and enforces them. And he wants money. He wants wealth. So he knew what to tell him. And he did. Verse 9. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have the charge of the business, to bring it unto the king's treasures. Now, you notice how he says this. I'll pay you 10,000 talents of silver. Not to the king. He's paying it to the military. To the people who are going to go do this genocide. Now, notice he's careful not to call it murder, not to call it, genocide. He calls it business. It's just business. No emotions involved in here. Just business. Verse 10. And the king took his ring from his hand and gave it to Haman, unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, and the people also, to do with them as it seemeth good to thee. Okay, so he's turned it over. He says, whatever you want to do, go for it. That sounds like a good plan. Now, the king should have investigated more. And that's what happens a lot of times with people in power. Is the first person there with a good story that's convincing that already has a solution for it gets the okay. Rather than the king having to investigate, well, Haman's already got an answer for this problem. Why do I have to come up with one myself? Sounds good to me. Go for it.
And he was the one that saw it, found out that there was a problem that I didn't know about.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Daniel was accused by two other presidents in Daniel chapter 6, verse 12. Daniel 6:12 says, Then there came near and spake before the king concerning the king's decree. Hast not thou signed a decree that every man that shall ask a petition of any god or man within 30 days, save thee, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions? And so forth, so on. Verse 13. Then answered they and said before the king, That Daniel, which is of the children of the captivity of Judah, regardeth not thee, there it is again, O king, nor the decree that thou hast signed, but maketh his petition 3 times a day. Daniel's facing the same thing. It's always, they'll single out one individual, but what they really want is the whole nation. They want to eliminate the Jews. And they don't understand why they're doing this. It's satanic. That's what the Antichrist is going to do when he shows up. And it's always been his mission from Genesis chapter 3. There's 2 seeds. They're going to fight each other forever. And that's just the way it is. Accusations brought against the Jews in Ezra. You remember that? Sanballat and Tobiah show up. Same thing. And they'll go run off and throw a temper tantrum before the king, stomp their feet. You got to do something about this. Stop it. And eventually the same thing happens here. It gets reversed. God's in control. You can't overrule his rules. Same thing happens in the New Testament. When they want to accuse the Christians, hey, we don't like Christians. They're making us look bad. They're saying something that makes our conscience come alive and realize we are as wicked as we really are. That hurts my feelings. So what do? They run to the kings and the priests and the whoever is in charge. In Acts 17:17 it says this, These do contrary to the decrees of Caesar. Okay, we're going to say that they're doing something that's against what the law requires. So that becomes very incumbent upon us to follow the law as much as we can. There's no reason we have to break a law. If you can, I was explaining this Sunday, if you can obey God and man, go for it 100%. If obeying man means you have to contradict God, then don't do that. Obey God. However, you can't find me one verse in the Bible that says, Thou shalt drive 55 on the highway. So I could say, according to my religion, I'm not bound by a street sign. That's right. However, I could still drive 55 on the highway and obey their rule and not break any of God's. So there's no reason to say I'm better than man's rules. No, in Romans chapter 13, we're to observe the rules of the principalities and powers that are in control of this thing, because God says, I put them there. They bring rules that I instigate, and the ones that he doesn't instigate, a Christian should be wise enough to know by studying their Bible, okay, that wasn't from God. Otherwise, view it as God put it in place.
How do you say, do all the ordinance of man as unto the Lord?
Mm-hmm.
I know I give it to Mary for not quoting it.
Yeah, do all things honest in the sight of God and man. Mm-hmm. Okay, in verse 8, he said, And Haman said unto the king Ahasuerus, There is a certain people scattered abroad and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of thy kingdom, and their laws are diverse from all people. Neither keep they the king's laws. Therefore it is not for the king's profit to, what's that word? Suffer them. Okay, there, suffer. That's showing you the word suffer. And it'll have this same meaning throughout the rest of your Bible. Suffer means to allow. Don't suffer them. Don't allow them to be here anymore. Don't allow them to do what they've been doing. When you suffer, it's because you allow something to happen. Suffering is you allowing something. It may not be you allowing it because you want to. It may be beyond your control to stop it. But it's being allowed. For a Christian, we suffer because we think God is in control of it. And we suffer, we allow Him to do whatever it is He wants to do. That's a base meaning of the word suffer. Let's see. Verse 9. If it please the king, let it be written that they may be destroyed. Just kill them all. And I will pay 10,000 talents of silver to the hands of those that have charge of the business to bring it unto the king's treasure. Okay, so Haman's saying, hey, go pass a law that these people will be destroyed, and I'll pay what's needed to get this job done. So he's done everything he can to make this a no-brainer for the king. Look, you don't even have to worry about the money for it. You don't have to worry. I know there's a problem here, and it's bad news on top of bad news, but I've got the answer. And it's going to cost you nothing to it. Just sign it and act like nothing ever happened. It'll be as good as if it was done. And that's what he does. And so in the tribulation, you're going to find the Antichrist is going to come on the scene. He probably comes on gradual, not all at once. And he says that he cast forecast with his devices. Okay, so he's going to do some supernatural things that'll give people answers to problems they never knew they had, and to some problems they really knew they had. And he's going to use satanic means to do it, because that's who he is, Satan. And so it's the same thing you see here. I'll provide you all the answers, and everything's going to be hunky-dory. Well, if something sounds too good to be true, you better investigate it. It's too good to be true. And the king doesn't investigate. Verse 10. And the king took his ring from his hand, and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the Jews' enemy. Okay, the ring here is the signet. That's the signature. When we write a letter, we sign it at the bottom. That's the signature. In the old days, what they would do is the king's ring. It had the family crest on it, and they knew it was him. And he would pour some hot wax down there and stamp it, and that way you would know it was from the king. Well, that was his signet. Well, we use the same form of the word signature when we sign something, so somebody knows it's from us. So this is passing it into law. It's now in writing. That's bad news. Remember, the laws of the Medes and the Persians can't be broke once it's in writing. Verse 11. And the king said unto Haman, the silver is given to thee, and the people also, to do with them as seemeth good to thee. Okay, so verse 11 is a picture of God the Father giving the devil permission to persecute the Jews. And not just Jews, but us too, and Job, and whoever. There's time to time, God will give the devil permission to do certain things. Here, Haman's given permission to go after the Jews. Now, it's not going to work that way, but he thinks it is. And for a little while, he thinks his plan is going to work. And for a little while, about 6 3/4 years, the devil will think his plan is going to work too. But God has the final say in all of it. And the devil can't go any farther than God intends. And even though Haman's grand plan was to destroy all the Jews, it backfires on him. But for right now, where we are in the story, he thinks everything's going his way. He's got it in writing. And y'all know most of that. Look at Matthew 18. Here's what happens. Matthew 18, verse 7. Woe unto the world because of offenses. For it must needs be that offenses come. But woe unto that man by whom the offenses come. Okay, so there will be times, and we've seen it through the Old Testament, where God will say, oh, my people are messing up. I got to correct them. Who do I need? Okay, Philistines, come out here. Sick 'em, boy. But you know what? He's saying right there, woe to them. Because now they've put their hand on God's people, God's going to smack them. He says, woe to them by whom the offense comes. In Luke 17, verse 1. Luke 17, verse 1. Here's where it becomes very pointed. Then said he unto the disciples, it is impossible. Impossible? Okay, if God's saying something's impossible, then it's impossible. People say nothing's impossible for God. He's saying something's impossible right here. It is impossible, but that offenses will come. Offenses will come. And there's no way around that. Now, you got to see exactly what he's saying. He's talking to the Jews, his disciples. And he's telling them offenses are going to come. Well, they have to come. The rest of our verse says, but woe unto him, as in singular person, through whom they come. Daniel chapter 9. Daniel 9, verse 24. Here's why offenses are determined. Israel determined them 490 years before this. Daniel 9:24. 70 weeks are determined. That's why it's impossible to change it. It's determined. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon the holy city. For what? What's this determination for? To finish the transgression. Okay, that at the end of the tribulation, all of Israel's transgressions will be wiped out, as though they had never done anything wrong. But it hadn't happened yet. They're still paying. They're still in timeout, and they're going to be. And timeout's going to turn into wall squats. And to make an end of sins, sin will be wiped out. And to make reconciliation for iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness. Okay, so forth, so on. Okay, and he's talking there about the Antichrist. But woe unto him, the Antichrist, through whom the offenses come. And they're going to come through him. All right, concerning the Jews to be beloved, but they're a beloved enemy. In our age right now, they're an enemy of our gospel because they stand for do's and don'ts in order to please God. And we stand for, I can't do those, and neither could you. Somebody did, and you can get in, you can hide in him, and nobody will know you never did it. Romans 11, verse 28. What's that, Christianity? Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. Romans 11:28. It's supposed to make them jealous. Romans 11:28. As concerning the gospel, that is how you got saved. They, talking about the Jews, are enemies for your sakes. Okay, so God's against their system. But as touching the election, okay, there's something called the election that the Jews qualify for. They are beloved for the Father's sakes. Okay, so that'll be when they get, the election is when they're elected to go into the kingdom at the end of the tribulation. And that elect is going to be a small remnant. There's no way to say, hey, I'm going to be part of the elect. You don't know. There ain't going to be much left after all the destruction that goes on in the 7 years that hell is on earth, literally. in Romans 11, verse 1. Here's a big thing that's going on right now. Replacement theology. That is, we have replaced the Jews. You can't replace the Jews. The Jews are the Jews. Israel. Israel is Jacob, the house of Jacob, the Jews. That's who they are. They're a seed, they're a bloodline. Okay? We're not. When you're saved, you're put into a new family, but it's spiritually. Your blood doesn't change. Your DNA doesn't change. Spiritually, you have a change, but not a physical change. Romans 11, verse 1.
Does that make us mutts?
No, you're a new creature. Romans 11, verse 1. I say then, hath God cast away his people? Talking about the Jews. God forbid, for I also am an Israelite, of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. Okay, so he's telling you very plainly there, God's not done with the Jews. They're going to get an election at the end of the tribulation, but there's something way better than that you can get in right now.
Amen.
That's what Paul's trying to stress. Yeah, as far as the Jewish system is concerned right now, that's punishment on top of punishment. Get out of that. There's a new creature you can be right now. God's not done with the Jew. Jew's going to get everything he's been promised. God doesn't break his promises. However, right now, there's a way of escape. He always provides one. It's to get in Jesus Christ. Look at verse 25. For I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery. Okay, so if you do not understand God is not done with the Jews, I'm not going to call you this. I'll let the Bible do it. Paul says you're ignorant. So you can tell anybody who thinks they have replaced Israel that they're ignorant, or that the Bible calls them ignorant, or that Paul calls them ignorant, or that God calls them ignorant. Lest you should be wise in your own conceits. You can say you're conceited and you're ignorant. Here's why. Blindness, in part, is happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. Okay, so it's only going to be for a period of time. And then God's turning back to the Jews. And what we're dealing with in the book of Esther is God's dealing with the Jew, how he's going to handle that Jew. And in the tribulation, he's going to take care of the Jew. However, that doesn't mean every Jew gets out scot-free. No, sir. There's only going to be a small remnant that are saved. In Isaiah 11:11, there is a system going on right now that says that Jew right now is returned to their land, but they're not returned because they're looking for God. They're returned because they're looking for gold, and they're looking for, security and or a special homeland, but it's not because of God. And that's true to a degree. They're not there because of God. They're not, but they don't know why they're there. They are there because of God. It's not because they chose God, it's because God chose to take them back. That's why they're there. That's right. Now, the interesting thing here is this. Here's the way people go with that. They say that's not them returning to Israel. So there's going to be another dispersion of Jews from their homeland, and then they'll finally come back looking for God when we bring the millennium in because we're so good. Okay. That's the people who are amillennial. They don't believe in a tribulation and a millennium. They believe we're in the tribulation. So they're believing there's going to be another dispersion. We Christians are going to claim the kingdom, and we're going to make everything so righteous that Jesus Christ is going to get jealous. He's going to come back down here and say, I got to set a throne down there. Y'all are so great. And then it's going to, I'm exaggerating, but that's really the way they believe. And then that will call all the Jews back because they'll come for the right reason. They'll come to seek Jesus. Okay. Yeah, that's the craziness about it. Okay, here's the thing. Isaiah 11, verse 11. Isaiah 11:11. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the, how many? Second. There's only 2 gatherings. Second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, Egypt, and Pathros, and Cush, and from Elam, and Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. There's only going to be 2 gatherings. So if they're gathered right now, it's obvious they're in their land. Okay, if you kick them out again, he doesn't have a gathering for a 3rd time. It's only a 2nd one. So that doesn't work. In Nehemiah chapter 24, verse 9. I'm sorry. I told you Nehemiah. It's Numbers. You're going to get your Bible work out tonight. Numbers 24, verse 9.
I was having a problem with 24.
Yeah. Nehemiah 24. Nehemiah chapter 145. You can find that one. You can read it to us. Numbers 24, verse 9. Talking about the Jews. He crouched, he laid down as a lion, as a great lion. Who shall stir him up? Blessed is he that blesseth thee, and cursed is he that curseth thee. That's still in the Bible. God's still doing that. You want to turn your hand against his people? Even if he's punishing them, it doesn't mean you get the right to punish them.
Or say something.
That's right. And he's already said right here, if you touch my people, I'll come down and touch you in a way you don't want to be touched. One piece of you over here and one piece of you over there. I mean, that's what he's saying there. So, we've got to remember, even though the Jews' position is doctrinally wrong, they've got to take our position. They've got to learn from us how to please God, and it's to get in his Son. That's what we got to tell them. However, they still have a special blessing from God. And God said, I'll curse somebody that curses you. So, look at all of the nations who have turned against the Jews. God's turned against them. And it's been obvious.
Burned Germany to the ground and divided in half.
Yeah. Yep. And Russia, and you just name it, one after the other. They've had supernatural vengeance taken out on them from God. Because God said, I'll do that. So as a Christian, we don't replace Israel. We don't convert to Israel. We don't replace them. We don't curse them. And we don't convert to them. We try to convert them. We try to show them, hey, Jesus Christ is the answer to everything you've been looking for. Your system is antiquated. It didn't work for anybody you know, and it won't work for you. It wouldn't work for me if I was trying to do it. But I found somebody who already did it, and I can run in there like I'm running and hiding in a closet, and nobody knows I did never do it. Jesus Christ did it all.
You don't argue with him.
Yeah, really. So Ahasuerus is going to give Haman a blank check. He's going to say, okay, go for it. Take what you need out of the treasures and go hire all the men you need. Now, he's already promised to give him 10,000 talents. So he says, hey, look, don't even worry about it. It's not about the money. I got so much money. You just do whatever you need. The treasury door is open. Just go in there and get what you need. Go for it. And so the plot is thick. Now, we can't finish it, but we'll pick up on verse 12 next week.